Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and I'm back with another model making video. This time chronicling something that you may have heard of before. As I was digging out all of the models that I'd collected in my youth and never got around to actually building, there was one that I was surprised to see still made it. And I say I'm surprised because I honestly didn't remember if I had gotten rid of it or not. But I'm glad I kept it, and I decided it was high time to put this sucker together. Behold, the Orc War Trukk from Warhammer 40,000. Yes, this is an older Warhammer model. I actually didn't get this one for myself. One of my uncles got it for me while I was visiting for Christmas many years ago. It was my first exposure to the world of Warhammer 40,000. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just thought, hey, cool looking vehicle, I'd like to put this together at some point. Of course, like so many other things, it wound up on the back burner, but in a way I'm actually kind of glad that happened, because apparently there is a whole art to putting these Warhammer models together that I did not know about when I was a kid. So, had I put it together back then, I would have really screwed it up. However, time has passed, I now know what to do, so I've decided I'm going to make this the best darn war truck that I possibly can. This is a fairly small and easy to put together Warhammer vehicle. I mean, the directions literally fit on the back of the box, you see? And there aren't too many pieces you have to worry about. They're all clearly labeled and easy to tell apart from each other, so I figured this would go together pretty quickly. And it did, too. It's pretty easy. You start with the wheels, and frankly, the studs on the wheels, the hubcaps I guess you would call them, they were the part that were the trickiest because of how darn small they are. They're supposed to fit into the little holes in the center, and because they are so tiny and my fingers are so huge, especially by comparison, they prove tricky to get in there, but I managed to do it anyway. And of course, putting the body together, you can pretty much tell that just from the images. And like most technology the Orcs make, it's pretty clear that this is a vehicle which should not run. That's something you learn about the Orcs when you look into the lore. They just take whatever they can find, throw it together until it looks like something that could potentially work, and because they believe it will work, it does. Now, I suppose I may as well address the big question some of you might be wondering. If I start collecting Warhammer 40,000 in earnest, does this mean the Orcs will be my main faction? My current answer is, I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna make this model to the best of my abilities, don't get me wrong, but I haven't quite decided if the Orcs are the faction for me yet. The best advice I've heard about collecting Warhammer is that you have to pick an army that speaks to your soul. If you're just focused on how they play on the tabletop, then you're eventually going to lose interest because you're not just playing a game, you're making an art piece, you're creating characters with your own customizations, and if you're not passionate about the story and the aesthetics and all that other stuff, then you eventually will lose interest and you just won't care anymore. Now, having looked into it, I do like the Orcs, I will say that. Considering that Warhammer 40,000 is usually very dark and nihilistic and serious, I appreciate that the Orcs bring some levity. Like I said, their technology shouldn't work and yet it does, and that's just one aspect to them. I certainly do appreciate comic relief, so I wouldn't be opposed to collecting the Orcs and running an Orc army. At the same time though, the Necrons and Adeptus Mechanicus have caught my eye, and I'm pretty interested in them. And I'm also told that if you're a newcomer to the game, you should probably start out with the Space Marines. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll collect some more Orcs so the truck isn't by itself. I don't know if they're going to be my main army, but I'm still going to give this thing my all. Now, when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy, or as it's now called, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I know exactly what army I'm interested in, but we'll save that for another day. Alright, so once the main body of the truck was assembled, with the wheels and the bed and everything, I had to make a choice. There are two potential additions you can make for the truck's ramming capabilities. There are basically two plows at the end. One of them has 3 large prongs, and the other has a whole bunch of smaller prongs. The front of the box shows it with the 3 prongs, but there are images around the sides that show the multi-pronged one as well. I gave it some thought. I eventually decided that the 3-prong one looked better. I still kept the multi-pronged one because, who knows, maybe I can use it as debris for a landscape or something. But for the actual truck, I went with a 3-prong. And then it came time to assemble the orcs. This model comes with 2 orcs, a driver and a gunner. They both have the same pieces, legs, body, and arms, but there are slight variations to make them look distinct. And they went together pretty easily. And of course after that it was a matter of attaching the gun. I checked it and double-checked it several times to make sure I'd put it in the right place. I really hope I did. And whenever I've tried setting the orcs back into their chairs, they still seem to fit. And as one final note, I decided to leave the orcs loose. I don't know if you're supposed to glue them to the seats, but I decided I'm not going to. First of all, that will make both the truck and the orcs easier to paint when I start painting, and also, I just don't feel like gluing them in. And of course, finally, there were a couple of features not mentioned in the instructions, but which I decided to add anyway. There were 2 handles and a hitch. At first I didn't know what the handles were even for until I looked back at the box and saw where they were placed. So I decided, what the heck, may as well put them on there. And the hitch, I just sort of guessed where that was supposed to go. It's probably in a place where it would interfere with the mechanics of the truck, but then again, orc technology is supposed to be a mess that works in spite of how it's put together, so does it really matter? Of course, now that the truck is finished, it's time to paint. But I didn't actually have the proper paints when I was putting it together. I have a whole bunch of enamel paints that I'm using on other models, but as I've done my research, every single source says you have to use acrylic paints. People who try to use enamel paints with these things apparently have a lot of trouble, so acrylic paints are what you're supposed to go with. So painting these guys will have to wait until the next video. And that's where I really get to have fun, because I can paint this sucker however the heck I want. I'm certainly looking forward to that part of it, and I hope you are as well, so until such time as that happens, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, then go down to the description to find links to follow us on DeviantArt, Patreon, and Twitter. While you're there, you'll also find the Amazon links for the original novels Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, and The Occult Mafia. 2 books I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.